Blind Citizens Australia proudly presents the Entrepreneurial Mindset Webinar Series. Brought to you in partnership with Vision Australia. Webinar 4, Financing Your Business.
I'd like to begin by offering an acknowledgement of country and paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which each of us are gathering tonight. For me, it's the land of the Darkinshung people. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise that we are meeting on sovereign land that was never ceded. The topic of this evening's webinar is financing your business, and this is the fourth of 6 webinars in the Entrepreneurial Mindset series that Blind Citizens Australia is hosting in partnership with Vision Australia. If you missed any of the first 3 webinars, they have all been recorded and you can access them on the An Eye to the Future website. I just want to let you know that there is a special offer tonight, so stay tuned for more details on that. But on that note, I will hand over to Chris Edwards from Vision Australia, who is going to be facilitating the discussion for tonight. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Sally. It's great to be here, and I'm very excited about this particular webinar on financing your business. Certainly a challenge that every business, when it's commencing, needs to address. Just a little bit about me. I'm, as Sally said, work for Vision Australia. I'm the Director of Government Relations and Advocacy, NDIS and Aged Care for Vision Australia. And, you know, I've worked for the organisation for over 25 years now in a range of operational and strategic management roles. I've also, in my part-time, out of hours, do a fair bit of work on boards as non-executive director, and particularly for some of our largest disability organisations in Australia. What most people don't know about me is that I actually first started in small business, so I have very much a passion about small business. The first person I'll introduce from the panel is Michael Curran, Mick, who is the co-founder of NV Access and the developer of NVDA, a screen reader. So welcome, Mick.
Thank you, Chris.
I thought we might start with just tell us a little bit about yourself and NV Access.
All right. So I am totally blind myself. I have been vision impaired in the past, but totally blind at 15. I've always had a major passion, or 2 passions I guess I've had in life, are both computers and programming, but also advocacy, especially in disability advocacy and blindness advocacy. And over the years, I've been lucky enough to merge those 2 passions through developing NVDA, which is a free screen reading software for Windows, which allows blind and vision impaired people to use the Windows operating system on the computer for no more cost than a sighted person. I started developing NVDA back in 2006 as a bit of a hobby, but as it became more serious and more people around the globe started depending on it, I and some of my friends created NV Access, which is an Australian registered charity, not-for-profit, which has been running for the last 15 years or so, and its job is to promote, support and develop the NVDA screen reader, which includes, you know, channeling grants, hiring developers and all that kind of stuff.
It's certainly been an extremely busy time for you over the last 15 years with the success of NVDA. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We also are joined today on the panel by a subject matter expert in finance and business, Ricky Lee, who works for the ANZ. And would you like to introduce yourself, Ricky?
Yes, certainly. Firstly, it's an honor for me to be invited to this webinar representing ANZ Small Business Banking. I'm Ricky Lee. I'm the Area Manager for Small Business at ANZ Bank. I manage a team of 12 business banking managers and small business specialists in the small business space. So I've been doing this for over 16 years, and I'm very passionate about small business myself. Like yourself, Chris, I used to run a small business for 4.5 years or so. And then I realized that, hey, right, I could help a lot of people with their banking as well, right? Having that experience in small business. So here I am, Chris.
Well, we're very much looking forward to sharing some of that expertise that you've got. I might start with you, Mick. So lots of people who are entrepreneurs or think they have an entrepreneurial mindset have great ideas, but it would be probably, when you look at the statistics, a lot of those don't actually come into fruition and actually be able to achieve what they need to do in business. I'm interested in just hearing about your pathway in, you had an idea around a free screen reader for people, and what were the key steps that turned it from an idea into a business?
I really think the main thing really was sort of just the passion and belief in the actual goal to try and make an impact or make a change on the world. I came into this really strongly believing there was a bit of a injustice, I guess you could say, in the fact that blind people had to pay thousands of dollars to access a screen reader. And I myself knew that, being a blind person in Australia, that even in Australia we're fairly lucky, but it's still pretty awkward to have to find the money to buy one of these screen readers, and then of course keep it up to date. I myself was lucky enough when I was younger to receive some funding from the Variety Club in Victoria, to get some of this kind of equipment, such as a screen reader and all that I needed for school. But a lot of other kids that I knew weren't so lucky. And so that's really, I guess, what sort of started to drive me on this need to try. I think the second thing really is the fact that there definitely were a lot of people in the blindness community around the world talking about the possibility of writing a free screen reader, or trying to do that kind of thing themselves. I think, to be honest, the thing that separated our project from the other ones is simply that we just started writing that first line of code. We had no idea whether we would succeed at all. It was just a pet project. I just tried it out. Also, I was in a pretty good place at the time because I was in my early 20s. I was on my blind pension. I didn't have a job. I sort of felt that, well, if I'm getting the support from the government and all that, I may as well do something useful and, use the time to try and do something. I had no idea whether it would create me a job. I had no idea whether it would bring in any money or anything like that. I was simply doing it because I enjoyed it. And, maybe I could possibly make some kind of an impact, but I really had no idea. But then, I guess it all changed when people started to email me from around the world sort of saying, look, hey, I like what you're doing. Can we translate your software into, Brazilian Portuguese or Slovakian or whatever? Because, in our country, the commercial screen reading software is even more expensive than we're used to in Australia, and or is out of date or may not even be in our language. And so that really fueled me on, and that's sort of, I guess, how I really got started. And then, of course, the first sort of organization, large corporate, took note of what we were doing. So that was the Mozilla Foundation, who make Firefox. They were also really interested in what we were doing, and asked us sort of, how they might be able to help us. And I guess it was that point when we realized things were pretty darn serious. And so we decided to take the time to create NDVA Access as a proper corporate entity.
So obviously, the passion and the hobby, but why, when you decided to turn it into a corporation, why, if you're doing it, why did you need money? So why was finance important to be able to achieve what you've done today?
I think people can do a lot with passion and just time and hours, but I'd been working on this thing for probably just under a year when we made this decision, and my life was moving on. I was with my girlfriend at the time. Some people may remember Amy Curran, and we were wanting to settle down and get married and have children, all that kind of stuff, and that obviously costs, and so no longer could I just simply rely on my blind pension and continue doing this as a voluntary project. If I was, it was fun at the time, just voluntarily, but I'd sort of put a bit of a pause on my university degree and stuff. But I did not, I sort of then needed to come to a decision and sort of say, well, no, I am really going to take this seriously, and we need to support this financially, because it'd be great to be able to employ other developers on the project. And indeed, I really wanted to bring in my close friend Jamie Tay, who had been working with me on the project, again, also in a voluntary capacity, but he was also working full-time at another company. And I really strongly believed that if I could bring him on board full-time officially, then the project would just speed forward tremendously. And and I knew that perhaps the sky was the limit. But there was so much stuff that we wanted to get done, and so much stuff we wanted to implement in the product and improve. And so we knew that we needed that finance to do that.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more, but I'll just cut over to Ricky. Ricky, when people in different businesses are starting up, when is the right time that they approach ANZ, and what sort of services can you offer apart from just handing out money?
That's a very good question, Chris. When do you actually approach the bank, right? When you're thinking of starting a business. So there's 3 things that we do for our customers. Okay? We'll help them with their banking and finance when they start a business, to run a business, and grow their business, right? To answer your question, it's always good to meet up with a banking consultant early in your planning stage, so that you know what exactly is actually needed. If you wanted to proceed with maybe a small loan, or if you wanted to open up a bank account, or you wanted facilities that is required for the kind of business you're running. So it's good to go up to and speak with a banker, right? Either you could do it online, you could do it via phone, or you could go to the branch and we could help you with that, right? Best is to make an appointment, right, prior to going there if you want to see a small business specialist, right, specifically for business. So to answer your question, early before even you start your business, right, get an idea of what is required.
Great. So when you're talking about that planning process, so I've worked in large organizations, and things like business plans are really important to us, and and we've got people that have expertise in developing business plans to understand what you want to do and how much it might cost and those sorts of things. If you're fairly new to this, how might what would the bank expect, as far as the sorts of documentation that you might come to the bank with?
It is very challenging for someone who is starting in business when you're not very good with financing or finances, and it can be daunting to think about, oh, I need to prepare a plan, a business plan, or a cash flow forecast. How do I do that? Where do I start? Right? At ANZ, we have something called a Small Business Hub, which allows you to gain access to information that you can look at in helping you write a business plan, in helping you complete a cash flow forecast. There are templates, right, for the business plan. There are templates for cash flow forecast. And the other thing that you could obviously do also is to approach an accountant. Right, an accountant will give you that advice on how to do that. Right, it may cost a little bit more to do so, but they will take you through from A to Z on how to actually do that. Okay, but alternatively, as I said earlier, we have a site that you can actually go in, right, and there are instructions on how you can actually do that. So all we need is initially is a business plan, right, a cash flow forecast. Depends on what you actually want to achieve with the bank, right. That's actually some ideas for you to proceed, and there are a lot of other resources within that hub that will be able to guide you through on starting and running a business.
Thank you very much. If you're someone with a disability, does the service look any different at ANZ?
Definitely, we have accessibility for people with disability. The best is, as I said, to make an appointment with a banker prior to you deciding to either come in or speak to somebody, make an appointment, and then we'll be able to help you with some of these access to this information, right? It's not readily available at every branch. Okay, so as I said, it's easier if you made an appointment.
Thank you. So Mick, when you talked about, your passion for and your expertise around programming and your recognition that you needed to commence a business, what sort of business knowledge did you have around business plans, and what support did you access to, move it from, I suppose, a hobby to a real business?
To be honest, I didn't really have any proper official qualifications or anything like that in the business side of things. In fact, I really, as a young person, didn't really have much interest in business at all. In fact, was quite sort of, to be honest, jaded with the for-profit business scene, and used to love writing essays and stuff at school, which really annoyed my dad. But but what I think really helped me when starting out was the fact that I'd participated in a lot of things in Blind Citizens Australia in the past. In my early adulthood, I was part of Young Blind Citizens Victoria. So I did 3 years as president. I also Victorian representative on the National Policy and Development Council as well of BCA. And I really feel that gave me a really nice and gentle but serious step into how to run and manage projects. It was pretty simple stuff, but at the same time, even with Young Blind Citizens Victoria, we had to do some budgeting. We had to, I had to get better at speaking engagements and running presentations and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, and managing a committee of people. So I think that was a really, really great opportunity for me to experience and learn those types of things, and then be able to apply it to what I was doing with NDVA Access. However, I will point out that the stuff we were doing at NDVA Access was a little bit different in the sense that we didn't early on really have to do business plans and things like that, because we had sort of one sort of particular impact or outcome. We were working with individual IT corporates who would provide us with grants to do very particular work. So it was very project based. We never really approached, investors or someone to sort of say, hey, can you generally finance our company? And that's not something we did early on. Much later on, in the last several years or so, we've been approaching some philanthropists and funders and things along those lines. But certainly back then, it really was about just actually getting the funds needed to achieve a very particular outcome.
Fantastic. And so when those early grants through Mozilla and Microsoft and others, how important was the awards and the recognition that you got for your product to actually gain those grants and new grants?
Yeah, I think notoriety definitely helps, because it means that you get your name out there. It means that people are taking you seriously. But I think really the main thing that has always continued to maintain the respect that we are given, I guess, from these corporates and the community, etc., is the fact that we haven't gone back on our principles, I think, and everyone has definitely respected us for that. The fact that our goal is to provide a free and open source screen reading software, and there is never going to be a day when we're going to turn around and start selling that, because if we do, then there was sort of no point in us doing it in the first place. And I think that really gave us that respect from companies like Mozilla and Microsoft. Because if you look at something like, or even Google, I can talk about, for instance, Google provide us with funding. And a good example is, they provide free products. They have a free Google search engine. Now, they need to make sure that their search engine is accessible to blind people. But what they can't do is say, yes, it's accessible to blind people, but by the way, blind person, you need to go and buy a $1,000 piece of software to use it. That's not fair and not right. So therefore, it's sort of within Google's interest, and this is why they choose to help us, is that having a free screen reading solution available on Windows is beneficial to them as well.
Thank you. Makes perfect sense. Ricky, so there's a number of people that have hobbies, and some of those hobbies actually do earn them a little bit of money. Like, from your perspective, what's the difference when someone it needs to think whether, am I doing a hobby or is it a business? And then what sort of loan do I get? Do I get a personal loan or a business loan? And what is the difference between those sorts of products?
There is a personal loan, right, which is what you access when you want to buy a car, or you want to go on a holiday. You use a personal loan. Some people use that for a business, but that's not the right product for it. Okay, and some people choose to want to use that for the hobby as well. I would say I'm only accredited to talk about commercial lending. So I would say if you're looking at starting a business, right, or rather needing funding for business, it should be a commercial loan, right? So that would be a business loan that you deal with a commercial section of a bank, right? Be it in ANZ or any other bank, right? You deal with a commercial section. That would typically be called either a commercial term loan, or it could be a commercial line of credit, okay, something like an overdraft. Okay? Whereas a personal loan is more for anything that is non-business in nature, non-income generating in nature, right? That is what the personal loan is used for. So definitely a business loan, or definitely a business line of credit.
So does the business need to be going when you get a line of credit, or is there options to have security? Like if I was starting up a business, and I needed some $50,000 worth of cash, how would I go about getting that?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a question that I get asked every day. And this might take a while for me to get through. I'll tell you about the 4 C's, and Chris, stop me if I'm going too long and taking too much time. But that is the 4 C's that we look at whenever a person is requiring lending, right? It could be when you're starting a business, or well, in the midst of running a business, you've started it for over a few years and you need some funding to help you with your cash flow. Or it could be the case where you're thinking of growing the business, okay, taking it to the next level, right? Going international or going statewide, national-wide, and expanding that. It could be either of these 3. We consider 4 things before we can say, hey, here you go. This is the money that you're applying for, and it is good for your business, right? So the 4 things are, the first one is character. Okay, the question that we ask basically is, how will you repay the loan? Are you good for it? Okay, what kind of work experience you have? Okay, what kind of experience in the business or a business that you had in the past, right? How much time have you spent in that industry? Okay, so it boils down to the person who's making that, or who's borrowing, right? Or the main director of the business, or the main shareholder of the business. Okay, the main person that is borrowing. So that's one. Character is one. Second C is, so this is part of the 4 C's. The second C is capacity. What is the ability to repay the loan, right? What is your current income? What's the future income, right? Have you considered a change of seasonality in terms of income? Have you considered a change of circumstances when it comes to income, the ability to repay the loan, right? Or service the loan, be it directly or indirectly, right? Where is your income coming from? Okay, the third C is collateral, right? If you fail to repay the loan, is there something of value that the lender can hold on as a security? An example of a collateral is, if you're buying a car, the car is the collateral. If you're buying a property, the property is collateral. If you're buying a business, the business can be collateral to some extent, right? But we generally would prefer property, bricks and mortar, or something tangible as a security, right? Machinery can be an asset as well, right? Depending on what kind of machinery. And the last C, okay, is capital. What kind of contribution are you making to the transaction? So say, for example, someone needs to borrow $100,000 to start a business, right? What are you contributing to that whole transaction? So if that person is contributing $100,000, say for instance, and he needs to borrow another $100,000, making it $200,000 in total capital that's required to start the business, right? That is what we consider as the contribution, the 50% contribution into the start of the business. Sorry, that's a very, very long answer to your
it's great
question.
Great to learn about the 4 C's. It makes great sense. As we're sort of just winding up just the general discussion, Mick, is there one piece of advice you would give somebody that has a passion, an idea, an opportunity to do something in business, and what would that be?
I really think the most important one is really just go for it and try. Even if it's something small, even if it's in a voluntary capacity, just try your hand at it. Try and do some good. If you're doing some good work for people, or you're making an impact, then I sort of believe that things will generally fall your way. If you're doing something good, then hopefully you or others will be able to make it happen. Though I think the said one, but quickly the second one I think I've definitely learned over the years is around the fact that I believe that especially as a blind person or a person with a disability, and in regards to running a business, autonomy is more important than independence. And what I mean by that is, don't be scared to get assistance or to delegate, But as long as you're making the decisions and stuff, then everything will be great. So as examples of this was, you know, I used to independently travel a lot by myself overseas. Now I could do it, but I found I was extremely tired at the end of the day, and, you know, I had to use up so much energy and stuff. Whereas then I started, you know, taking an assistant with me or something, and it was amazing, you know, amazing difference. Now I was still making all the decisions and everything and still running everything, but, you know, but that sighted guide and all that kind of stuff, I didn't have to, you know, expend that energy to try and get around myself and cope just as a blind person. I think that's really important. I mean, obviously that would cost or whatever, and, you know, you have to be in a position to do that. But if your business is starting to be a little bit successful and you are employing or whatever, I would strongly think about that, making sure that you as a blind person, as, you know, as a director or CEO or whatever, do have the assistance that you need to do your job well.
That's excellent advice. You know, using your energy for the purpose of the business, not just in trying to live.
That's right.
Ricky, on the flip side, or, you know, actually, no, I'll ask you the same question. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody that is thinking of starting a business? We've just got a minute or two before we have to jump to Christina.
I think I see a lot of business customers coming in, and I've been doing this for 16 years. People who have been really successful in business and people who have failed as well, right? I think doing your research, doing proper planning is required. Speaking to people who have been in that business, if it's an industry that's been around for a while, it's good to get a mentor as well in that industry, because I see quite a number of businesses that fail, and I've seen a lot of businesses that do well. And generally, businesses that do well have done their proper planning, they have proper research, they have a mentor, they have professionals guiding them through, could be accountants, right, and so on. So the one advice I would give is do your proper planning and your research, definitely. Chris.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the idea of, yeah, finding a mentor. So we've, you know, obviously, we've talked about, you know, different types of finance, and one of those is around what support government might be able to do, somebody that's trying to kick off a new business.
So I'm Christina, I'm the Business Support Officer at BCA, and we just thought that we would take the opportunity to advise everyone on the recent changes to government supports and subsidies for anyone looking to start their own business. So specifically, the previous NEAS program, or the New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, has been replaced with the Self-Employment Assistant Program, and this change came into effect on the 1st of July this year. So similar to the old NEAS program, the self-employment assistance can assist with starting or running a small business by helping people to learn about and consider being self-employed, decide on a business idea and check if it will work, develop a business plan, which we talked about today, get a business up and running, or adjust your own business to keep it viable. Now, the program offers 6 different free services that are flexibly delivered. They include self-employment workshops, small business training, business plan development in more detail, business advice sessions, and you get a few per calendar year, business health checks, and small business coaching. So some of that mentoring that Ricky was talking about. So in addition, there is some financial assistance also available, such as a $300 reimbursement to assist with eligible business costs, such as business insurance, a self-employment allowance for up to 39 weeks, and even some self-employment rental assistance for up to 26 weeks if eligible. So if anyone is interested in finding out more, you can visit dese.gov.au or BCA's An Eye for Business resource page on the An Eye to the Future website, or you can contact BCA on 1-800-330-660. So now we could move to questions if you're happy, Chris.
It sounds like a great idea.
Okay, great. So you can raise your hand if you have a question, or you can email a question into bca@bca.org.au. And we do have one email that has been sent through from Peter. Now, Peter says, My business is manufacturing, marketing, and distribution of a new invention, which is a revolutionary multi-directional tip for the white mobility cane. We are needing to raise at least $100,000 and are looking into crowdfunding. Does anyone have any advice about where to get people with these skill sets who might be prepared to pay as a percentage of funds raised?
Has anyone, Mick, did you use any crowdfunding at any point in NV Access's history?
Not NV Access itself didn't, but there have been a lot of community projects within that have come through NVDA, like creating particular add-ons for the software who have used successfully used crowdfunding. So, for instance, the ones that created NVDA Remote and Dictation Bridge and things like that, I believe they crowdfunded their work. I think it works for some. It really depends. I think if you've got something that you see, usually with crowdfunding, the way it works is that people will pledge money, and then if your project does get off the ground, then you provide them something of thanks in return. Whether that be one of your products or notoriety, in advertising or something like that. So crowdfunding can work very well, but I think though that you're not entirely sure whether you're going to actually get the funds, of course. So you have to do a great deal of, advertising and really pushing why your product is good and all that, which is, it's fun and good to do, but there's probably a bit of work involved, definitely.
You'd have to appeal to a lot of people to raise $100,000.
Absolutely, you would, yes.
To do that.
Yeah.
Ricky, have you seen any experience with crowdfunding?
No, we hear of people doing that, and I'm not familiar with that, so I shall not go into that. But however, I must say that you'll be surprised what some of the banks are willing to do when it comes to a very unique product. If yourself covers the 4C really well, the 4 Cs that I was talking about, right? Where you know your product really well, you have an experience, you potentially have some collateral to offer, or potentially have some capital to put in, right? And you can show that the capacity of this product will generate some strong stream of income in the future. If you can cover these 4 Cs, there is a good chance that banks are willing to have a chat with you, right, and help you with 100,000 funding.
Can I just ask a supplementary question there?
Yes, sure, Peter, go ahead.
What sort of interest rates are you looking at for the loans of that size for business purposes, as opposed to, say, housing loans, etc.? It'd be a lot higher, I would imagine.
It would be higher. Commercial loans are definitely higher than home loans, right? It can range from between 5% to sometimes even as high as 17%, depending on the structure of the loan, whether there is security offered, the amount that is required, and a few other factors involved. As you know, interest rates are going up considerably over the past couple of months, and potentially economists are saying that it might go up as well. So what I'm just saying to you, between 5% to 17%, that can vary over time as well.
See, the other problem is collateral. Like, I wouldn't be prepared to put my house on the line because I'm retired and I don't want to put my life savings into that. I've already put a lot of money into the project, but it's manageable at the moment. And to have a loan over my head like that wouldn't be something I'd consider. So,
yep. Peter, I must say also that the we don't just do loans that with total collateral, as in bricks and mortar. As you said, in your circumstance, you don't want to offer your property as security, right? We do deal with customers that in that situation as well, and in some occasions we do it unsecured, right? It is possible to do it unsecured. We look at the viability of the business, and we look at the capital contribution as well that is being made into the business. So yes, bricks and mortar is good, but if there's no bricks and mortar that it can be offered, we will still consider the application or the request for unsecured lending.
Thanks, Ricky. That's great. And we'll just have a couple more questions. So Debbie, you had a question.
Hello. Yes, thank you. Just in relation to the self-employment assistance, the NEASE program, my understanding is that you couldn't, it was for those who, if you'd had a degree, we didn't qualify for it. With the self-employment assistance, does it matter if you've got a degree, say a Bachelor of Business, like I've got now a Bachelor of Applied Business Management, so could someone like myself access the self-employment scheme?
Yeah, so it is a new program that has just come out, and we've only just found this information within the last fortnight, Debbie. So from what I can tell, because it is very flexible, it's quite possible, but I don't have that confirmation. I highly recommend if you go on to the dese.gov.au website. You can also go on to our I for Business webpage on the I to the Future website, and we do have a fact sheet that is posted there, or I can even send out a fact sheet to you if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Christina. First place, it would be the website, and then take it from there. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you. And we have a question from Julie.
I've done the NEASE program and I have 2 degrees. I'd like to know if I'm able to access this self-employment scheme, even though I've been a NEASE participant previously.
Again, yeah, so it's a new program, so not quite sure about the eligibility criteria. So everyone will be assessed for eligibility when they inquire. So like with Debbie, we only just found out about this information quite recently. So I don't want to give you the wrong information, Julie, but if you go to the dese.gov.au website, there is a fact sheet. And it can at least get you started in determining your eligibility. And then there's a free 1-800 number that you can ring as well.
Thank you.
So we have a question for Mick. So Mick, who were your mentors? What types of professionals do you rely on to keep your business going?
Gee, I think that we've had many wonderful people over the years, I guess. Most of them are probably more in the development or software accessibility space, I guess. They've been a really great help to us in terms of, explaining sort of the history of the industry, giving us more ideas and more energy to do things, and of course, connecting us with others who might be able to help us. That's probably the main lot of people really are. It's a wonderful industry, and there's a lot of people out there across the globe who really do want to do the right thing in regards to software accessibility and accessibility in general for people with disabilities. And it's a wonderful community, very strong social network, and all that kind of stuff. And so we participate very heavily, across a lot of those groups and standards committees and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of good conversations go on there, and that I think what really fuels us on.
Well, I'm interested, Mick, over the last 15 years, thinking of you in and not just the development side, but the business side. Was there any time that you thought, gee, this is hard, I'm not sure if I can continue on?
I think in the early days we were riding high on, we're doing a good thing and we don't really know how we're doing it, but it's working. Cool, let's keep going. I think there have been times where it started to get a bit more serious, especially when you suddenly sign a contract with a large corporate for say $100,000 US or something like that. That can become a little bit scary. Or another time was where we got some significant support from a large Japanese not-for-profit called the Nippon Foundation, And this was a multi-year grant, and very, very stringent documentation we needed to keep on, you know, the outcomes and impact across the globe and all that kind of stuff. And they really checked it letter for letter. And I needed to actually go to Japan and make a presentation to the Nippon Foundation president about the work that we'd done, and to ask for a new grant for the next 2 years. And that was a really scary, you know, experience, I guess. I mean, fun, but I, you know, really had to work at it. But it was wonderful though, you know, because many times these kind of charities and not-for-profits and stuff, again, just like us, they just want to do good in the world. So if you can explain yourself well enough and you can, you know, back it up with evidence, then, you know, they're usually pretty happy to help you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, and so what has been the biggest challenge that you faced with the business so far?
Look, I think that we've been pretty lucky. I mean, I think along the way, maybe the biggest challenge is actually just trying to stay on track and make sure that we don't get pushed by particular people's opinions. You know, so for instance, you know, we've in the past, we have spoken to, say, quite respectable high up people in corporates who have, you know, pulled us aside and sort of said, look, really like what you're doing, but, you know, surely now's the time to just sell it and go and buy a houseboat and, you know, enjoy life. And it's been really, I mean, look, we, you know, as I said, we're not that way inclined. We'd prefer to just drop the whole thing if that's the direction it was going. And thankfully, both, you know, Jamie, my colleague, and I, we've never disagreed on that. And so we just politely listen to these people and, you know, nod our heads, and we keep going on the trajectory we are. And I think, again, you know, that hopefully they respect us even more for that, the fact that we have kept up, you know, I guess our promises and our principles. But yeah, look, it is challenging sometimes knowing where your money is coming from year on year, and as you employ more people. NDVA Access now has 5 employees. We all work remotely from our own homes, so our outgoings are really only our salaries pretty much, and then some equipment. But yeah, it is scary sometimes, not knowing. And I mean, that's why at one point, I think around 2018, you know, you know, apart from doing the software development, I was also doing a lot of the management of the company in terms of the accounting and, you know, contracts and all that kind of stuff. And one morning I woke up in 2018 and looked at our accounting software and, you know, saw sort of, you know, so many zeros in the bank account, as in a lot, you know, a large number. And it sort of just suddenly hit me like, wow, we're in a good place, but gee, this is scary. Like, if I, you know, what if I make a wrong move or something like that? And so it was at that point I decided we really need to bring in, you know, a general manager, someone specifically to just work on the sort of the operations and the finance that could, you know, take that burden off me, so that I could continue doing the stuff that I was confident doing and knew I could do well, which was the innovation and the software development, and then leave some of that, the finance and operations, up to someone skilled who, you know, does have the background experience of that. But it's been, you know, it's been a wonderful time, and I've learned a great deal. But you also, I think, need to know where, you know, when it gets big enough for you to sort of step back a little bit.
Yeah, really interesting. Ricky, if on that, what would you see as the greatest challenge that businesses face, that from your experience, having worked with so many businesses?
I think the greatest challenge that a lot of businesses face is uncertainty. If they don't plan for what's going to happen in the next phase of their business growth. When COVID hit, a lot of business in small business struggle. I think preparing for the future, right? Preparing for uncertainty is very important. Things get obsolete very quickly as well. I think the one thing that business owners will do really well is having a plan.
How can listeners today get in contact with the ANZ Small Business Team?
Okay, we have, depending where you are, we have a small business banker in every state and in nearly every town. So it would be best if you hop onto anz.com and you can go from there. Alternatively, you can call this number 131314 and request for a meeting with a small business specialist or a business banking manager.
Thank you. And Chris, that's all we have time for. So I will hand over to Sally to close for tonight.
Great, thanks Christina, and thanks everyone. If anyone had any questions that we haven't been able to address tonight, please send them through to bca@bca.org.au. Saying thank you to all the panellists and to for this evening, and to everyone who came along tonight as well. It's been great to have you all here. Our next webinar for the entrepreneurial mindset will be on networking and marketing in the sighted world. And in this webinar, we'll look at some big picture thinking and also some strategies around how people who are blind or vision impaired can network and market their business. Just a reminder that Bill Lang from Small Business Australia, who spoke at our first webinar, does still have the offer available for free membership to Business Advantage Online, which is valued at around $500. And that has plenty of resources and courses, education and educational materials and all sorts of other stuff on there. If you are interested in taking Bill up on that offer, then email bca@bca.org.au and we can make that happen. And don't forget to check out the An Eye to the Future website, and especially that An Eye for Business section on the website for links to the podcasts and the other webinars and all sorts of other information and resources as well. And finally, just one more thank you. Thank you to Christina for all of your work putting this evening together, to Chris, to each of our panellists, and also to all of you for participating. We look forward to seeing you for the next webinar in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
It's fabulous.